Midnight whispers. Listen carefully.
I noticed the spare key was missing on a Tuesday morning, and at first I assumed it was my fault. I keep it in a small ceramic bowl near the kitchen counter, tucked behind some unopened mail so it's not obvious if someone glances through the window. I live alone in a quiet neighborhood outside Denver, and I've always been careful about security. Deadbolt every night, windows locked, alarm armed. The spare key is only there in case I accidentally lock myself out, which I've done exactly once in 3 years. That morning, I reached behind the mail to grab it because I was planning to give it to my sister while she watched my dog over the weekend. My fingers touched nothing but ceramic. I moved the envelopes aside. The bowl was empty. I stared at it longer than I should have, trying to remember if I had already moved the key somewhere else. I checked the junk drawer, the coffee table, the small tray near the front door. Nothing. I even checked my jacket pockets in case I had taken it with me days earlier. Still nothing. I told myself I must have misplaced it. That explanation felt easier than any other possibility. I went to work and tried not to think about it, but the thought kept coming back in waves. I hadn't used that key in months. I hadn't even touched that bowl. When I got home around 6:40 p.m., something felt slightly off before I even unlocked the door. The porch light was on. I don't leave it on during the day. I stood there for a second, staring at it, trying to convince myself I must have flipped it on absent-mindedly that morning. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air smelled normal. Nothing looked disturbed. I checked the alarm panel. Still armed. No alerts. That should have reassured me. Instead, it made my chest feel tight. If someone had entered using the spare key, the alarm wouldn't have triggered if they knew the code. I walked slowly through the house, checking each room. Living room untouched. Kitchen the same. Bedroom normal. Closet closed. I opened it anyway. Nothing unusual. I knelt down and checked under the bed. Empty. I felt ridiculous for even doing that. I told myself to calm down. Then I noticed something small on the kitchen counter. The ceramic bowl was moved slightly forward, just an inch or two closer to the edge. I hadn't done that. I'm meticulous about where things sit. I would have remembered. I stepped closer and noticed a faint scratch inside the bowl. A fresh one, like metal had scraped against it recently. My stomach tightened. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You really should hide that better." I felt my pulse in my throat. I didn't reply. I checked the security cameras immediately. The front door footage showed nothing unusual. No one approaching. No one leaving. I scrolled back through the day. Around 2:13 p.m., there was a brief glitch in the recording. 3 seconds of static. Then it resumed. No visible figure. I moved to the backyard camera. Same thing. A brief flicker. Then normal footage. I zoomed into the front door clip from earlier that afternoon. Just before the glitch, I saw something I hadn't noticed at first. The doorknob moved slightly. Just a small turn. Not enough to open, but enough to test. My breathing became shallow. I locked the deadbolt again, even though it was already locked. Then I walked to the hallway mirror. I don't know why. Maybe I just needed to see something stable, something normal. But as I stood there, I noticed something behind me in the reflection. The front door chain. It wasn't latched. I always latch it when I'm home. Always. I turned around slowly. The chain was hanging loose. I hadn't touched it. My phone buzzed again. Another text. "Don't forget to latch it." My hands started shaking. I typed back before I could stop myself. "Who is this?" The response came immediately. "You left it unlocked." The exact same phrase from the previous message. My heart slammed against my ribs because I hadn't left it unlocked. I know I hadn't. And that's when I heard it. A soft metallic sound from the kitchen, like a key being set down gently on ceramic. The metallic sound came again from the kitchen, soft and deliberate, like a key being placed carefully into ceramic. I stood frozen in the hallway, every muscle locked in place, listening to the silence that followed. I didn't want to move, but I forced myself to step toward the kitchen slowly, my heart pounding so loudly it felt like it might give me away. The lights were still on. Nothing looked disturbed. The counters were clean, the chairs tucked in, but the ceramic bowl was no longer empty. The spare key was sitting inside it, resting exactly in the center. I stopped several feet away, staring at it like it might move again. I hadn't heard the front door open. I hadn't heard footsteps. The alarm hadn't sounded. I walked closer, every step careful, and looked at the key. It was mine. Same scratch near the top, same slightly bent edge from when I dropped it on concrete last year. I didn't touch it at first. I looked around the kitchen instead, scanning corners, checking the shadows near the refrigerator and behind the pantry door. Nothing. The house was silent. My phone buzzed again in my hand. Another message from the unknown number. Better. My throat tightened. I grabbed the key from the bowl and immediately checked the alarm panel. Still armed. No alerts, which meant if someone had entered, they either knew the code or they had never triggered the system at all. I rushed to the front door and inspected the lock closely. No scratches, no damage, nothing forced. I checked the windows again, pressing against the frames to make sure they were secure. Everything was locked, every entry point intact. But I knew what I had heard, the sound of metal on ceramic, inside my kitchen. My phone buzzed once more. You didn't see me. My breathing became shallow. I opened the camera app again and rewound the footage from the exact minute before I heard the sound. The living room camera showed the hallway empty. The kitchen camera showed the counter and the bowl. At 7:14 p.m., the bowl was empty. At 7:15 p.m., there was a brief flicker of static, less than a second. When the image returned, the key was in the bowl. No hand placing it there, no figure stepping into frame, just the key appearing between frames. My stomach felt like it dropped through the floor. I replayed it again and again, looking for movement in the glitch. Nothing clear, just distortion. My phone buzzed yet again. Check the door. I turned slowly toward the front door. The chain was latched this time. I hadn't latched it, I was sure of it. My hands were still trembling from picking up the key. I stepped closer to the door and stared at the chain. It was fully secured, the deadbolt locked. Exactly how I leave it at night. I stepped back slowly, trying to think logically. Maybe I latched it without remembering. Maybe stress was playing tricks on me. Maybe I had misplaced the key and then found it earlier without realizing. But none of that explained the text messages. None of it explained the glitch in the footage. And none of it explained how the bowl moved forward earlier in the day. Then my phone buzzed again. A final message. Now it's correct. The lights in the kitchen flickered briefly, just once. I turned around instinctively. The bowl was slightly farther back on the counter now, tucked behind the mail again. Exactly where I normally keep it. Like someone had reset the scene to how it was supposed to look. I didn't move for several seconds. I slowly lifted my phone and switched to the front door camera live view. The porch was empty, the street quiet, no one visible. But as I stared at the screen, I noticed something subtle in the reflection of the glass door. A faint outline behind me, standing in the hallway. Same height as me, same posture. Watching. I didn't turn around immediately. I didn't want to confirm it. The reflection shifted slightly, then leaned closer. And that's when the whisper came. Not from the phone, not from the hallway, but from somewhere just behind my shoulder. You lock it wrong. I spun around. The hallway was empty, completely empty. The chain on the door remained latched. The spare key rested perfectly in its bowl. Everything looked exactly as it should. That night I didn't sleep, and since then I never used the spare key again. I keep it in a locked safe now. But sometimes when I walk past the kitchen late at night, I hear that same soft metallic sound, a key touching ceramic, even when I know the bowl is empty. This was Midnight Whispers. If something goes missing in your house and then quietly returns, make sure it came back alone.